Hello crafty friends, I'm Lien from Studio Kato and I'm so happy you're joining me again today. I'm back with another card for Jane's Doodles, and this one was super quick to make. I think I spent 35 minutes on it, and it looks a lot more intricate than it really was to make, if that makes any sense. So I'm starting with the background, and I'm once again using the Lindy's Gang Magical Shakers. I'm using two colors. I will list them in the description below, along with all the other products I'm using. And you can see that for once I am not taping my background to my work surface. I usually tape it down to prevent warping, but today I figured I would see the effect of the water and the color flowing down to the valleys of the paper. So I wanted it to warp and I wanted there to be movement in the water. You can see I'm using my brush here just to move things around a little bit more. And I'm just letting that water and the color flow over the page. Then I can set that aside to dry and work on the other elements of my card. I am using this die by Waffle Flower Crafts. I completely forgot what it's called, but it's a really lovely die to frame small images, I think, or to give some texture to your piece, to your background. So I've cut that out 3 times out of thick white cardstock and once from the Canson Montval 200 GSM watercolor cardstock that I used for my background, because that is a very creamy white, as most watercolor cardstocks are. So I wanted that white to match with the white that's still showing on my background piece. I stacked all of those together with Barely Art Precision Crafts glue, and then I can move on to stamping. Now I am going to stamp this twice, but I'm not showing you because I messed up while filming it. So you can see I'm using these small stamps and I'm just lining them up on my Clairefontaine DCP 250 GSM cardstock. And I am first stamping this with my favorite things, Extreme Black ink, which is perfect for alcohol markers. But I do want to have a really crisp black outline and preferably gloss embossing it. But you can't do that before you color with your alcohol markers. So you can see I'm now cleaning off the stamps, mostly because I inked them up wrong with the Extreme Black ink. There was way too much ink on these. But I'm going to once again clean these. I'm just going to color in my images. I am leaving the stamps in my MISTI, and once these images are colored in, I will stamp it again with Versafine Onyx Black ink, just in the same spot because I left the images in my MISTI, so that's really easy to do. So I'm just stamping that again with Versafine Onyx Black ink over the images I've already stamped. And then I can clear emboss this with Wow Clear Gloss Superfine Embossing Powder. And that will give me a nice crisp black outline that is glossy embossed, which I really like. I really like that look. And I can color these in with my alcohol markers. You can't color over embossed lines because, one, it will rub away the embossing powder, so there's no point in it. And two, it will also potentially mess up your markers. So you probably don't want that. So this is probably a great way to get around that. I'm coloring these images in really quickly. I have only picked out a couple of colors. I picked out that blue for the glass jar, or the glass vase, sorry, and I'm repeating it on the inside of the cup there. I am choosing some deep red for the cup and a terracotta pot. Then the greens I have repeated in both plants, so they should match exactly. And then the candles I will do in just some cream colors as well. I am adding a little bit of interest to that cup there with some white polka dots. I am just using a white gel pen for that. I kept the coloring really simple, but I also left in my swatching. I always do this. I have a swatch chart of these markers actually, but I never use it because I have a ton of these markers. And going through the swatch chart is too much trouble for me. I don't like it. So I just swatch them out again each time I color with them. It doesn't save me much time, but I just think that process is more fun than going through my swatch chart. Now I have die cut that watercolor background with this is also a die by Waffle Flower Crafts, and I definitely know the name of this. It's the Stitchable Pinking Rectangle, I think. I'm pretty sure. It's a lovely die that cuts out a bunch of little holes so you can add stitching to this. But I also think it adds a lot of fun texture to your background if you just let some of the dots fall out and leave some of them in if they don't fall out naturally. So it just adds a lot of interest to your background, and it's not much trouble. It's probably less trouble than trying to poke all of those dots out of your die cut. I am just adhering these images on the background. I adhered the circles there with Barely Art Precision Craft glue, and then I'm using some foam squares to prop up the stamped images. Usually I would do these last, but I wanted to know where my images were on my background, so I could prop the background up with some foam tape, but mostly hide the foam tape behind the places where my images are, the places where there are a lot of dots still in the die cut. So you don't see much of the foam tape. You see it in a couple of places, but because the background is so textured and there's so much detail in the background, it's not really noticeable, I think. So it just looks like it needs to look that way, even though it shouldn't look that way. I really like how this card turned out. I really like the colors of it. And I wanted to repeat those colors in my envelope. So to make it easier for me, I chose some colored paper. This is pattern paper that just has some texture to it. Or the look of texture to it, just some pink pattern paper that I folded my envelope out of with the We Are Memory Keepers 123 punch board. And then I die cut that circles die again. And on the back of it, I sprayed some stencil spray. I couldn't show this on camera because you should really spray that outside or at least in a box so it doesn't get everywhere. And I just couldn't figure that out with my camera stand. You just spray it on the back of it. And then it's just sticky on the back, but it's temporary adhesive, so you can easily remove it. Just make sure that you follow the instructions on your spray adhesive or your stencil spray, because this one's set to let it dry just a little bit, otherwise it would be too sticky. And that works out. So I let it dry a little bit, then put it on my card and ink blended over it to get that circle pattern in my envelope, and also the orange and pink colors of my watercolor background. Again, I really like how this card turned out. I love that background die with not all of the dots popped out. It's a lot less finicky to not pop out the dots, and I think the result is pretty good. I hope you liked the card too. If you did, make sure to leave a thumbs up on this video and leave your thoughts in the comments below. I would love to read them. You can also subscribe to my channel if you want to see more of my videos, and if you want more inspiration for Jane's Doodles, I will leave a link to the Jane's Doodles blog in the description of this video, and I will also leave a playlist from all my Jane's Doodles videos on the video, so you can just click on there and it will take you to more inspiration. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.